Obviously, we know that television works, but we feel like it takes much more dedication, commitment, and investment actually to be able to make it work. There's something that is so important in terms of what we call the back end. From the time we meet that person through television, the back end system of what we do to develop a relationship with that person is critical. And I've had a beautiful man of God, David Prudhomme, in our studios, and I wanted him to share a little bit about why that is so important for you. Well, hello and welcome. We have a wonderful visitor at BMC Farrell today, David Prudhomme from Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome, David.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
David has a company with his family, his father, Doug Prudhomme, and Mark, his brother, that is a tremendous asset in God's kingdom with different ministries, nonprofits, and charities. And I wanted to share with you today the importance of the functions of DPCNS and his company and his family provide for ministries. David, would you just give us a little bit of an overview of what you do and why is data so valuable in knowing how to monitor and steer a television, radio, or media ministry today?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Our company really performs three broad services. We only work with nonprofits, and all the companies we work with are ministry related. But we work with organizations in terms of back office processing, handling all the day-to-day logistics of handling communication from inbound communication from donors, so caging, receipting, all of those functions. We work with clients on the fundraising side, becoming a member of their donor development team, helping them find provision for the vision that they have. Then we also work with organizations on the marketing side, so whether that be digital marketing, direct marketing. We're very active in that space, both in terms of donor acquisition and house file communication. So with respect to the issue of data, we really believe more than ever in the changing world we have, whether that be in broadcast media, direct mail, and especially now in digital media, having a really good grasp of what's working, what the key metrics are, making sure that the ministry principal has their finger on the pulse to make quick, efficient, effective decisions is more critical than ever, and we believe that the database, the data tools we have in place help provide those tools.
Awesome. If we have a television program, whether it be nationwide or regional, what is the importance of being, and how are the metrics that you need to know to be able to know how you're doing? We all have to be good stewards of God's money, of production, airtime, but then response is what we've got to know how we're doing to be able to know how we're investing God's money. So give us some metrics, a quick lesson on that.
Sure. So we've built some pretty sophisticated data models that try to determine what needs to happen with an airing for it to be successful in the long run. So the kind of things we're looking at are immediate response. We want to figure out if we spend $1,000 to be on air, how much do we have to get back at the time of airing for the program to be successful. So that's certainly one factor, immediate response. Second thing we're looking at is we need to understand how many names that are responding are new names. If we're investing a large amount of money but are only communicating with names we already know, in the long run that's not going to pay off. So we're carefully measuring how many names we've met are new names. And then we're also looking at donor conversion. And with that, what I'm referring to is the idea of if we meet someone, they give us a gift, how many of them go on to give us a second gift? So if we have those three metrics and we know that we have a reasonable rate of return at the time of airing, we have a reasonable number of new names as a percentage of people that respond, and we have a strong conversion rate, then TV can be a very effective model. But those are the numbers, those are the metrics we have to pay close attention to.
So how does someone track from the standpoint of even when they bring the names in, how do you track to determine what is the next step with that particular person that you meet?
Sure. Well, one of the things we want to be looking at, obviously, is making sure we know what they responded to, both in terms of the media outlet and the program. Then we get them on board. We can determine what was the overall response to that media outlet and program. The key that we believe is when we meet a new name, we need to front load our communication efforts with that name. We have a pretty brief window of time in which if a donor is going to give again, in which they will give again. in our world, in our view, that's about 90 days. So we need to make sure we're doing everything we can appropriately do to communicate, get our message out there, get our cause in front of the donor, challenge them, encourage them to support, and make sure we're doing that quickly and efficiently.
I know this, we feel like from studies and from the data that we've collected that television is as powerful as ever from the standpoint of being effective to build a ministry, but we believe also because things are changing, it's how to use television is becoming more critical. It's a little more difficult. You have to be more sophisticated. You need people like a David Prudhomme behind you to understand how you are doing from a stewardship model. So do you have any kind of feeling from a trend as well as television and broadcast media that it can work and what it takes to make it work?
I think there's no doubt that it can work. I think your point is spot on. It's a changing world. Broadcast media is changing. How people consume media is changing. But there is no doubt that broadcast media can work. We have a number of clients that are very successful with it. But the key is to make sure we're very disciplined, we're very diligent in our approach, that we have our finger on the pulse, we know what's happening, we invest further in the channels that work, we pare back in the ones that don't. And as long as those disciplines are observed, it can be really effective.
And what's the best way to track from a standpoint of people calling? Some people are coming to the website, and still people are actually mailing in from a television program.
They do. Okay, so there's 3 different answers that I'll give, at least in our view, of the easiest way to make that work. So with respect to phones, we believe that each national airing should add a dedicated phone number. So that way when someone picks up and responds, they call the call center, it's easy to identify what triggered that response. So on phones, if you have a national network, get a dedicated number. For web response, we believe that you should have a unique URL that is only shown on air. So for example, if I have an organization that has a ministry that has a .org domain, then I'd probably also set up a secondary domain that's .tv. And .tv is what I'm advertising on air. That's where I'm driving all traffic. And that way we can tell in the future what response was driven by organic web traffic versus what was response that was driven to the web from TV. Then with respect to mail, what we would recommend is you set up a dedicated P.O. box that is only for TV response. And again, the only place where you advertise that address is on air, and then any response that comes into that will be attributed to TV. So if we do those 3 things, have a dedicated number for phones for national airings, we have a dedicated URL for web response, we have a dedicated P.O. box, then at the end of a given period of time, we can know with certainty what something brought in through the phones at the time of airing, and we have a very solid rule of thumb of what additional revenue can be attributed to TV through phones and web.
That's awesome. I know Marshall Field, the great retailer, is a famous story. He said, I know 50% of my advertising dollars are wasted. I just don't know which 50%. Yeah. That's so much more true now, and there's also even better tools, though, to be able to know which 50% is working. And so DPCNS and David and his company can help you really refine and know where you stand and where you're going and trending, and make your ministry successful from that standpoint. Thank you so much for coming, David.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
God bless you.